Hello, everyone. My name is Rivera Sun. I'm an author and a strategist and a trainer in making change through nonviolent action. I want to thank you all for having me with you on Gandhi's birthday, October 2nd, from all the way here in the United States to all the way over there to you guys in the Netherlands. It's an honor to share this time with you and to share some thoughts and reflections on nonviolence and nonviolence today. I'm the author of a novel called The Dandelion Insurrection, which is a story of making change through nonviolent struggle in a slightly fictionalized United States just around the corner of today. One of the things that I did in the process of writing this novel and still do in the work that I do in training my fellow Americans in using nonviolent action to make change is I really reflect deeply on where nonviolence is today in the world, particularly within the context of my country, and what people know, what people don't know, and what choices they're making in terms of how they apply the skills and the philosophy of nonviolence based on this knowledge that they may have, and in some cases, many cases, do not have. I work with a group called Campaign Nonviolence, which is an organization that works to build a movement for a culture of active nonviolence. They're in all 50 states and 15 countries, and they teach people and train people in the broad definition of nonviolence, not just in how to use it to make change, but also in how nonviolence can be practiced towards the self, towards all others, and of course towards the earth, which we often forget to include in our equation. We teach people how to use conflict resolution, how to use de-escalation skills, how to use nonviolence to address not just physical violence in our world, not just war, but also the systemic and structural, cultural, economic forms of violence, such as poverty, such as racism, such as systemic injustice, and how to look at that as the manifestations of a culture built on violence. So we think about nonviolence and building this culture of nonviolence as a way to start changing and transforming our world by really thinking deeply about what does nonviolence look like today in our world. It's an important reflection on Gandhi's birthday to really think about how far the world has come in the past 100 years since Gandhi was walking around on the Salt March, let's say. That we still have a lot of violence, we still have a lot of challenges, and yet the field of active nonviolence has just exploded since that time. We have learned through the work of two researchers, Erica Chenoweth and Maria J. Steffen, who compared the success rates of violent struggles and nonviolent struggles that were trying to do maximalist political goals, such as changing governmental regimes, ending occupations, and expelling foreign invasions, that nonviolence is not only working, it's working twice as often in a third of the amount of time with a fraction of the casualties. So that really begs us to start questioning and asking, why do we persistently believe that violence is going to be the answer to our problems? And why don't we start systemically and systematically engaging people in building a culture of active nonviolence, in training everyone from the smallest children to the wisest elders in how we can use the skills and tools of nonviolence in our world today? That's the work that Campaign Nonviolence does, and within the context of that work, one of my roles is to train people in using strategy for nonviolent change. When we think about strategy for making change, we always have to give Gandhi a big hat tip, a big honor in this role. Gandhi is known for being extremely principled in the way that he approached nonviolence, but he was also extremely strategic. And so Gandhi really understood, as did many and most of the successful struggles that have built upon his legacy, that change comes from withdrawing our consent and cooperation from that which we oppose, and instead placing our consent and cooperation and participation into that which we wish to see in the world. Gandhi framed this in terms of constructive program and satyagraha. And now some scholars say this in terms of constructive program and obstructive program, calling these the two hands of nonviolence, the hand that opposes injustice and the hand that proposes solutions. We can see this at work in our world all over the place. People who are building new systems, people who are teaching and educating, people who are doing relief work for the problems that we face. And then people who are out on the front lines using boycotts and blockades, sit-ins, occupations, strikes, to actually hold back the worst of the damage that we are facing. These two hands of nonviolence are very powerful when they are paired together. And that's something that I feel is an extremely important understanding for all of us when thinking about and reflecting upon Gandhi's legacy on his birthday today and how we can work with that in our world to make change. When I think about the long arc of nonviolent struggle, it's very old. Most people don't know that, but the first recorded strike that we know about, written down, happened in Egypt when construction workers on the pharaoh's tomb went on strike to get their payment. The first general strike happened in Rome when the plebeians decamped from the city for political rights and demanding equality from the patricians. So nonviolent struggle is literally thousands of years old. But in the 19th century, we've seen just in the 19th and 20th century, we've seen just a dramatic upswing in the amounts of campaigns that people are using in the world. Not only is the success rate of nonviolent struggle much greater than that of violent conflict in solving some of our major challenges, it's also on a tremendous upswing of use, that people are more and more turning to these tools all throughout the world. I find this incredibly hopeful and inspiring personally, and it makes me commit as an activist to making sure that people know how to use this incredible tool of nonviolent action. And not just the tools for making change to nonviolent action, but also to understand the role of using nonviolence within the context of our lives, of shifting these structures that we live among, that were built on a historic legacy of violence over thousands and hundreds of years, that now is the time to shift those structures that were built on violence, on punitive justice, on oppression, on racism and sexism, on hierarchy and domination, to use these tools of nonviolent action to actually unravel those systems and reconstruct new systems based on nonviolence, dignity, respect, equality, justice, restorative justice, conflict resolution. Since Gandhi's time, we have learned so much about nonviolence and so many of its applications. We're really very blessed to be alive at this time. For all of the challenges that we are facing on this planet, we also have all of the legacy of the lineage of nonviolence, whose shoulders we stand upon, whose footsteps we walk in, to do the work of transforming these systems. And we know that at this time that it's a very critical time for thinking deeply about nonviolence. We know that the support of war and empires and domination and excessive materialism and consumerism is destroying not just ourselves and not just creating deep systemic injustice, but also destroying our natural systems on this earth without which we cannot live. So the practice of nonviolence towards ourselves, towards all others and the earth, ends up requiring us to challenge and confront systemic and structural injustice everywhere in our world. It's a very large task, but I know that we are up to it. I know that we are capable of it. One of the things and the applications that I am doing personally with this understanding is to take the combination of constructive action and obstructive action, nonviolent direct action, and the constructive work that Gandhi did with the salt and the spinning wheel, and apply that type of strategy to the problem of income and wealth inequality, particularly here in the United States. You may know that, or you may not know, but the United States has the greatest inequality of all the nations in the world. That we both have the very richest people and some of the very poorest people, and that the gap is tremendous. And one of the ways that I try to help people understand this is that if we took stacks of $20 bills and we piled up the median wealth of families in the United States, an African American family would have 3 inches of $20 bills stacked up for their entire wealth of their family. The median white family would have 3 feet. And Bill Gates, who is considered to be one of, or if not the richest man in the world, would have over 300 miles of $20 bills stacked up. That's his personal wealth. That's more than anyone needs. That's more than we can sustain while still taking care of the needs of all the people on this planet, even just the people within the United States. We have people going to bed hungry in this country that is supposedly so rich. So one of my projects is to launch something we're calling Live, Share, Grow, a movement for the 100%. And the 100% is, of course, a play off of the meme, the idea that the Occupy movement introduced of the 1%, which is the very wealthy people, and the 99%, which is the rest of us. And really challenging us to understand that if we want to resolve the problem of inequality, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take the 100%. It's going to take us reaching for our highest humanity together, treating each other as humans, and finding ways to constructively build new systems and apply the concentrated wealth of our society to supporting those new systems. Now, as you can imagine, that's not going to come easily, necessarily. And so it will require us to use engaged and active nonviolence in strategic ways, in ways that really go to the pivot points of change, in ways that actively withdraw our consent and cooperation, in ways that actively engage our non-cooperation, our refusal to put our time, our energy, our money, our dollars into these systems of injustice. But then also in ways that engage our very principled understanding of not just nonviolence, but our common humanity. And that was something Gandhi was very, very good about. Gandhi always uplifted the humanity of those he was struggling to have step out of power in India, the British. He always held up their highest principles as well as his highest principles at the same time, and very effectively demanded that they live up to their own capacity as human beings, even when they or he or anyone else failed to do so. Just because we fail to meet an ideal doesn't mean that we can step back from the getting up back on our feet and striving to meet that ideal again. So in Live, Share, Grow, we ask people to come to their common humanity. We ask the 1% and the 99% to come to the table together and to start to find ways to move that concentrated wealth into society in ways that build shared and equal wealth among all and many people. It's a great adventure. It's not necessarily easy, but it's certainly very interesting and a lot of fun. It's requiring me to put into practice everything that I have learned through my years of research, training, organizing, teaching, writing the novel, which was based on nonviolent struggle, it requires me to put all of that into practice in an engaged way. And it's something that anyone is welcome to participate in. You can find out more about it at www.livesharegrow.org. And you can start getting engaged with it today by starting to do the 5 constructive actions that we recommend. And so one of the things I want to say to you in this message on Gandhi's birthday is that Gandhi perhaps would be the very first to say that each of us has a responsibility to study, to learn from all that has come before us, all of the leaders and movements and strategists and thinkers, the scholars and researchers, all of the thousands of unsung heroes and the millions of ordinary, extraordinary people who have used engaged, active nonviolence to make change after change after change in this world. We have a responsibility to learn from each and every single one of them as much as we can, and then to walk in the path of that lineage of nonviolence, to actively bring it into the world, to find ways to bring it into our lives, to use it with each other and towards the earth, and then to organize and strategize to address the pressing issues that we're confronting today. I believe this with all of my heart, and I know that each one of us can do it. I know that it's a journey that many of us are on together as we work in our own countries and around the world to build this culture of active nonviolence, this engaged citizenry that is skilled, wise, knowledgeable, trained in the various forms of using nonviolence in all aspects of our lives. With that kind of humanity coming to play today in our world, I believe there's nothing that we cannot achieve, nothing that we cannot do. And if we want to see that capacity manifest and bloom within humanity, then each of us needs to plant the seeds of active nonviolence wherever we can, tend them, nurture them, water them, and see that they grow and bloom and blossom in our world. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to plant one of those seeds of thoughts, ideas, and reflections here with you today. And I am very grateful and deeply honored to be a part of this movement with you all throughout the world. Thank you.